welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you for checking this video out. If you find it helpful or interesting, please consider subscribing or hitting that thumbs up button. It really helps my little channel grow. So today I'm going to talk to you about Etsy. Yes, much like a million other people, I launched my Etsy shop during the pandemic, and I have since seen it fizzle away and die for a couple of years. I have now rebranded and I have a new Etsy shop, so I will tell you more about that near the end of the video. But today I thought it would be helpful to share 3 mistakes that I made in launching my first shop, because I feel like there are things that I didn't think through, and hopefully they will help you if you're thinking of starting your new Etsy shop. Mistake number 1, not having a niche. Listen, everyone tells you you need a niche and you should listen to them. I can see in hindsight why I ended up not having a niche. So when I launched my shop, I basically did it because I've always loved to make art and make crafts and DIYs with my hands. And at the time during the pandemic, I had a lot of time in my hands. Obviously, we were in lockdown, so I wanted to try new things. And I launched my Etsy shop as a way to legitimize that passion. So the first thing that I did was register my business. So I used Ownr. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a website that helps you do all of the admin that you need when you're registering a business with the government. So you submit it through them, and then they give you back all of the documents that you need. So it's super handy. It really just takes care of all of the fuss around registering a business. So I did that, which is a great thing. I do recommend that for sure. And then I also opened a bank account for my business. This was just a checking account, and I did this just so that I could keep all of my transactions and money from the business separate from my own, because obviously I expected my business to blow up and I wanted to have everything in order. I do recommend doing those things. I think those are great things to prepare yourself for having a shop. And then I registered my business under the name Lila K. Namor Designs. So again, my intention here was to keep it super open because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my business yet. I wanted to make sure I could be malleable in case I changed my mind. That is a good idea in case you need to rebrand, which is what I've done now. And because my business name is so vague, it's just my personal name, it works with my new brand. The problem is that I kind of got distracted with that, and I just kept vague as the theme for my Etsy shop too. So when I started, I tried to do a furniture flipping business first, and hear me out. I started playing around with resin, right, and making little designs, and I made this table. I'll insert a little clip here, and I'm very proud of it. It was really pretty and it was really fun to make. So of course I was like, this is it, I'm gonna flip furniture. And I bought resin, I bought a million makeup powders to make the little different colors, I bought things to texturize the resin, I bought my respirator because you need a mask to use the resin, a heat gun, everything, right? And I was ready. Now, this business idea was just not practical because resin takes anywhere between 16 to 24 hours to cure, depending on the resin. And during that time, the resin fumes are very toxic, so you can't be around it. That's why you need a respirator. And the only place where I could have feasibly made this work, maybe in terms of space, would have been my parents' garage. But being their garage, they needed to use it, so we couldn't really not enter the room for 16 to 24 hours at a time while the resin cured. And with that first idea just died. And then I started making many little things that I just wanted to make. So I started playing with clay, and I made clay earrings and clay necklaces. And then I wanted to make soaps. So I bought soap base and I made my soaps that I listed on my shop. And then I also wanted to make candles, and the bubble candles were blowing up everywhere. So I made those too. And eventually my shop just became a little box of trinkets. It was, I mean, they were pretty trinkets, but they were trinkets. And it became really hard to find my focus. So that leads us very nicely into mistake number 2, following trends. So because I started making all of these things that were popular on TikTok and I just wanted to get my hands on making them, I ended up simply following trends, which meant my shop had no real identity of its own. It was just what everybody else was selling. So it was really hard to get sales, and then when I did get a few sales, I realized, you know, I live in Canada, so shipping that is not letter mail is very expensive, anywhere between $13 and $20 per item. So I also saw a lot of people putting my items in their carts, so my soaps and my candles, but they weren't buying, and I wouldn't either. If I'm buying one soap that's $5 and then I have to pay $15 for shipping, it's just not worth it. Then I started thinking, okay, how can I make this easier on my customers? So I tried to absorb the cost of shipping and just price my items a little bit higher. And eventually this would have worked, this would have balanced out, but because I wasn't having enough sales, it didn't, and I was just losing money. So that was the second bump in the road when I was like, this isn't working. So at that point I decided, okay, I need to focus on one type of thing. What is the one type of thing that I enjoy doing most out of everything that I'm making for my shop? And I settled on jewelry. So I bought a lot of craft wire, I bought all of the tools that I needed, and I started making pendants and rings and necklaces and just bracelets, everything jewelry. And I really enjoyed making those. Now, it took a while for those to start to sell, but eventually I did get to a point where I was getting maybe 2 rings ordered a week, which, you know, it's something, it's consistent. And I was really enjoying making those, and you know, I got really excited every time my phone makes this like cha-ching noise when you make a sale, so it was very exciting. And then I started thinking, okay, well, what else can I do? How can I sell more of these rings? And that leads us into mistake number 3, which was not thinking about the future of my shop ahead of time. Now, because I kind of stumbled into selling these rings through trial and error, I ended up selling rings that were really pretty, but were not high quality, right? I had materials that were just not, very high quality. Like I was using craft wire, which, I mean, very easy to use, it's very fun to use, but that meant that, you know, the rings that I was making, you can't really wash your hands with them because they will oxidize, because the wire is not very high quality. Now, at that point, I didn't really have the capital to invest in better materials, so to buy like gold-plated wire or something like that. So I became stuck. My rings were priced at $8, so very cheap. They would cost about maybe $5 to $6 to make in materials. So I was making a tiny profit, and I had no way of just scaling my business. Now, I should say for Etsy, at least in my experience, for it to actually pick up some traffic on your shop, you do need to buy Etsy ads. And my budget for Etsy ads was $1 a day. So, you know, whatever little money I was making was all being paid off into Etsy ads just to attract a little more traffic into my shop, and it was just all a closed loop and I wasn't seeing any money. So that is it. Those are the top 3 mistakes that I made when launching my first shop. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I am relaunching my shop right now, and you know, after I realized that I couldn't scale my shop anymore, that there was no way for me to make these rings better quality, I got a little disappointed and I closed up shop for like 3 to 4 months, and I was just like, what's the point of this? Like, you know, I registered my business, I've done everything that I need for the shop, because, you know, back when I said that I got my checking account for my business, I did that just to make sure that I could obviously file my taxes properly, which was another bump in the road, which I should share. This is not a mistake, this is not something that contributed to my first shop failing, but it was a frustration that I think other people might be able to relate to, or maybe prevent, depending on where you're at in launching your shop. So when I did my taxes the first year for my shop, I thought I was so prepared. I had a spreadsheet with everything that I purchased for my shop, and then another spreadsheet with everything that I've sold from my shop. And when I contacted my accountant, and she's a darling, she's just so helpful, yeah, she looked at that and she was like, you're missing some things. So what I was missing, which I forgot to write down, is that in the process of making anything that was going into my shop, of course, I was figuring out how much does it cost me to make, and then deciding the price of that I was going to sell it for. I never wrote those things down. So I had to backtrack and figure out the price per unit for each individual bead in my repertoire, which was so many. I had like probably, I don't know, like 1,000 beads, if not more. And then I had to figure out the cost of every single thing that I've ever made, and then the price that I sold it for. So it was an admin nightmare. So if you're selling physical products, make sure that anytime that you add anything to your shop, you are making all of those calculations and you're writing them down. So anyway, that stress of the taxes, the fact that I couldn't scale it, it really just made me feel disappointed, and I closed it. Now, I've been thinking about how can I rebrand my shop, because I do love having a shop and I do love selling things. Like, yeah, it's obviously great to make money, but I also get really excited and genuinely feel joy when somebody buys something of mine or uses something that I made and they find it helpful or exciting, or you know, it makes them more productive in some way. Like, it makes me so happy to be able to do that. So my new shop is called Virgo Things, and it is a planner shop because I love planners. So I don't know why I didn't focus on that as my niche to begin with. Because I'm a scatterbrain, that's why. And so now my shop is printable planner inserts for ring planners. So what's really cool about that is that it's something that I'm very passionate about. You know, I found myself many times in my life thinking, oh, I wish this insert existed, or like, I wish this was different. So now I get to make whatever insert I've ever wished or hoped for. I also have a prompt in my shop that asks people to message me if there's an insert that they're looking for and it's not available and they want me to make it. I'm happy to make it and list it. And it's also scalable because I make these inserts once and then I upload them. And because it's a digital file, people can buy them and they just download them directly from Etsy, which means I don't have to make things to order, and also means that the shop can continue to grow indefinitely if it becomes more popular. So yeah, that's what I have for today. I hope this was a useful video. Let me know down below in the comments. I'll make more videos about my new shop and showing you the inserts, but also let me know if there are any requests you already have. I know there are a few people that follow me who are interested in planners and love planners, so would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you soon.